What happens when two of Hollywood's most beloved stars clash on live television in a way that nobody saw coming? Today, we're diving into the shocking moment that had viewers gluing their eyes to screens as Zenaia, known for her grace and professionalism, reached her breaking point during what should have been a routine interview on the Kelly Clarkson Show. Before we get into this incredible story, make sure to hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments what you think really caused this explosive confrontation. The studio lights were blazing as Kelly Clarkson settled into her signature purple chair, her warm smile radiating the same energy that had made her show a daytime television staple. Across from her sat Zenaia, elegant as always in a cream-colored blazer, her posture perfect and her expression serene. The audience was buzzing with excitement, phones already recording what they expected to be another delightful celebrity interview, filled with laughs and heartwarming stories. Kelly leaned forward with her characteristic enthusiasm, her voice carrying that familiar Oklahoma warmth that viewers had come to love. Zenaia, I have to say, you look absolutely stunning today, and I'm so excited to have you here because there's been so much talk about your recent projects. Zenaia's smile was polite but measured as she responded. Thank you for having me, Kelly. It's always nice to be here and connect with your audience. The conversation started innocuously enough with Kelly asking about Zenaia's latest film roles and her experience working with various directors. Zenaia answered each question with the same professional grace she displayed in countless interviews before. Her responses thoughtful and articulate. The audience was engaged, occasionally laughing at Kelly's jokes and Zenaia's witty responses. But then Kelly shifted gears, her tone becoming more pointed as she leaned back in her chair. Zenaia, I've been watching your career for years now, and I have to ask about something that's been on a lot of people's minds. There's been this ongoing conversation in Hollywood about young actors and whether they're really ready for the level of fame and responsibility that comes with these massive roles. Zenaia's expression shifted almost imperceptibly, her jaw tightening just slightly as she processed the question. I'm sorry. Could you clarify what you mean by that? Kelly's smile remained bright, but there was something sharper underneath as she continued. Well, you've been thrust into these huge franchises, Spider-Man, Dune, and there are industry insiders who wonder if actors your age have the life experience necessary to handle the gravitas of these roles. Some people are saying that maybe Hollywood is too quick to hand over these iconic characters to the younger generation. The studio fell silent for a moment, the only sound coming from the gentle hum of the cameras. Zenaia's eyes narrowed slightly, and for the first time in the interview, her composed demeanor showed cracks. Kelly, I'm not sure I understand where this question is coming from. Are you suggesting that I'm not qualified for the roles I've been given? Kelly raised her hands in a gesture that seemed defensive, her voice taking on a tone that was both innocent and loaded. Oh no. No, that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just repeating what some people in the industry have been discussing. When I was starting out in music, I had to prove myself over and over again. I had to show that I wasn't just another reality show contestant trying to make it big. The comparison hung in the air like a challenge, and Zenaia's posture straightened even more, her voice becoming cooler and more controlled. Kelly, I think there's a significant difference between our situations. I've been working professionally since I was a child, and I've earned every single role I've been given through auditions, hard work, and dedication to my craft. Kelly's expression shifted, and she seemed to sense that she had touched a nerve. But instead of backing down, she pressed forward. Of course. I didn't mean to imply otherwise, but you have to admit there's a certain privilege that comes with being young and beautiful in Hollywood. Doors open more easily for some people than others. The tension in the studio was now palpable, with audience members shifting uncomfortably in their seats. Zenaia's media training was evident as she maintained her composure, but her voice carried an edge that hadn't been there before. Kelly, I think you're making some assumptions about my career that aren't based in reality. Every actor, regardless of age or appearance, has to bring something real to their performances. The idea that youth or beauty automatically guarantees success is not only inaccurate, but frankly insulting to the work that I and many other actors put into our craft. Kelly seemed to realize she was in dangerous territory, but her response only made things worse. Well, I'm sure you work very hard, but let's be honest about the realities of the entertainment industry. Some people have natural advantages, and there's nothing wrong with acknowledging that. Zenaia's eyes flashed, and for a moment the mask of professional politeness slipped completely. Natural advantages. Kelly, what exactly are you trying to say here? The studio audience was now completely silent, sensing that they were witnessing something unprecedented. Kelly's smile faltered as she seemed to realize that her interview was spiraling into territory she hadn't intended to explore. I'm just saying that different people have different paths to success, and sometimes those paths are smoother for some than others. Zenaia leaned forward in her chair, her voice becoming sharper and more direct. If you have something specific you want to say about my career or my qualifications, I'd prefer you just say it directly rather than dancing around implications. The confrontation was building to a crescendo, with both women now locked in a verbal chess match that neither seemed prepared to lose. Kelly's next words would prove to be the spark that ignited an explosion neither of them could have predicted. Kelly took a deep breath, and when she spoke again, her voice carried a tone that seemed almost condescending. Look, Zenaia, I think we both know that representation matters in Hollywood right now, and casting directors are looking for diverse faces. That's a wonderful thing, but it also means that some actors are getting opportunities that might not have been available to them in previous generations. The words hit the studio like a thunderbolt, and the silence that followed was deafening. Zenaia's face went through a series of expressions from shock to disbelief to barely contained anger. When she finally spoke, her voice was dangerously quiet. Kelly, are you seriously suggesting that I've gotten roles because of my race rather than my talent? Kelly's eyes widened as she seemed to realize the magnitude of what she had just implied. But instead of backing down or apologizing, she doubled down with a nervous laugh. That's not what I said. I'm talking about the industry as a whole, about how things have changed, about how there are more opportunities now for everyone, which is great. Zenaia stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the studio floor with a sound that echoed through the suddenly tense space. No, Kelly, that's exactly what you said. You just told a national television audience that my success is primarily due to diversity initiatives rather than my abilities as an actress. The camera operators continued filming, capturing every moment of the escalating confrontation as Kelly remained seated, her face flushed and her hands gripping the arms of her chair. Zenaia, please sit down. I think there's been a misunderstanding here, but Zenaia was no longer the composed, media-trained actress who had walked onto the set. Her voice rose slightly, though she maintained her articulate delivery. There's no misunderstanding, Kelly. You've just reduced my entire career, everything I've worked for since I was a child, to a checkbox on a casting director's diversity quota sheet. The audience was frozen, some with their phones still recording, others too shocked to move. Kelly's voice became pleading as she tried to regain control of the situation. That's not what I meant, and you know it. I was speaking generally about the industry. Ace's laugh was bitter and completely unlike her usual warm demeanor. Generally about the industry. Kelly, you looked me in the eye and questioned whether I have the life experience for my roles. Suggested that doors open more easily for me because I'm young and beautiful, and then capped it off by implying that my race is the real reason I get cast in major films. There's nothing general about any of that. Kelly finally stood up, her own composure cracking as she realized the interview had become a public relations nightmare. Zenaia, I think you're overreacting. This is what happens when we can't have honest conversations about difficult topics. The response was like throwing gasoline on a fire. Zenaia's voice became ice cold, each word carefully enunciated. Overreacting, Kelly. You just publicly questioned my professional qualifications on national television, and when I called you out on it, you're telling me I'm overreacting. This is exactly the problem. The studio crew was now openly staring, unsure whether to continue filming or intervene. Kelly's voice rose defensively. I'm trying to have a real conversation about real issues in Hollywood. I'm not the villain here. Zenaia shook her head slowly, her expression one of profound disappointment. A real conversation would involve respect, Kelly. It would involve acknowledging that actors of color have to work twice as hard to prove themselves. Not suggesting that we're being handed opportunities we don't deserve. Kelly's face was now red with embarrassment and frustration. I never said you don't deserve your opportunities. You're putting words in my mouth. The exchange had reached a boiling point with both women now standing and facing each other across the small coffee table that separated their chairs. Zenaia's voice carried a strength that commanded attention. I don't need to put words in your mouth, Kelly. Your actual words spoke volumes. Kelly threw her hands up in exasperation. Fine, then let me be clear. I think you're a talented actress, but I also think that the current climate in Hollywood has created advantages for certain groups that didn't exist before. Zenaia's eyes flashed dangerously. Advantages. Kelly, do you know how many auditions I've been to where I was the only person of color in the room? Do you know how many times I've had to prove that I could carry a film? Not because of my experience or lack thereof, but because executives couldn't imagine audiences connecting with someone who looks like me. The rawness in Zenaia's voice was startling, revealing a vulnerability and frustration that she rarely showed publicly. Kelly seemed taken aback by the emotional intensity of the response. I didn't know that. I'm sorry you've had those experiences, but Zenaia wasn't finished. And do you know what's really frustrating? Having someone like you, someone who should understand what it's like to be underestimated and dismissed, turn around and do the exact same thing to me on your own show. Kelly's voice became defensive again. That's not fair. I've always supported other women in this industry. Zenaia gathered her purse from beside her chair, her movements deliberate and controlled. Supporting other women means more than just saying you do, Kelly. It means not questioning their qualifications based on assumptions and stereotypes. The tension had reached its absolute peak, and everyone in the studio could sense that something definitive was about to happen. Kelly made one last attempt to salvage the situation. Zenaia, please don't leave like this. We can work through this conversation. Zenaia paused at the edge of the interview area, turning back to face Kelly with an expression that was equal parts sad and resolute. Kelly, some conversations can't be worked through in the moment. Some damage can't be undone with a quick apology or explanation. The finality in her voice sent chills through everyone present, and it became clear that this wasn't just a heated disagreement, but a fundamental breakdown in respect and understanding between two public figures who had always maintained positive reputations. Kelly's voice cracked slightly as she made one final plea. Zenaia, I respect you enormously. I always have. I think there's been a miscommunication here, and I'd love the chance to clarify what I meant. Zenaia's grip tightened on her purse strap, and when she spoke, her voice carried a weariness that seemed to age her beyond her years. Kelly, the problem isn't miscommunication. The problem is that what you meant came through perfectly clear. You questioned my readiness for major roles. You suggested that my success comes from advantages rather than merit, and you implied that diversity initiatives are the primary reason I get cast in films. The studio audience remained completely silent, many of them still processing the gravity of what they were witnessing. Kelly's hands trembled slightly as she reached out in a gesture of reconciliation. That's not what I believe about you or your career. I think you're incredibly talented. Zenaia's laugh was hollow and devoid of any warmth. Kelly, you can't spend 20 minutes questioning someone's qualifications and then expect a simple compliment to erase the damage. That's not how respect works. Kelly's voice became more urgent, tinged with desperation. But I do respect you. I invited you on my show because I admire your work. I think there's been a fundamental misunderstanding about my intentions. Zenaia shook her head slowly, her expression one of profound disappointment mixed with resolve. Your intentions don't matter nearly as much as your impact, Kelly. And the impact of this conversation is that you've just told millions of viewers that successful actors of color should have their achievements questioned and scrutinized in ways that others don't. The weight of Zenaia's words seemed to hit Kelly like a physical blow. And for the first time in the entire exchange, she appeared genuinely speechless. The cameras continued rolling, capturing every nuance of the moment as Kelly struggled to find a response that might salvage the situation. Zenaia adjusted her blazer with deliberate precision. Her movements calmed despite the storm of emotions that had just played out. I've spent my entire career proving that I belong in every room I enter. Kelly, I shouldn't have to do that on your show, too. Kelly's voice was barely above a whisper. I never wanted you to feel like you had to prove anything here. This was supposed to be a celebration of your success. The irony in Kelly's statement wasn't lost on anyone present, and Zenaia's response cut through the tension like a knife. A celebration would have involved talking about my craft, my preparation for roles, the directors I've worked with, the challenges of bringing characters to life. Instead, you chose to focus on whether I deserve the opportunities I've been given. Kelly made one last desperate attempt to regain some control over the narrative. Zenaia, I'm asking you as one professional woman to another. Please don't leave like this. Let's find a way to end this conversation on a positive note. Zenaia paused for a long moment, and for a brief instant, it seemed like she might reconsider. But when she spoke again, her voice carried a finality that left no room for negotiation. Kelly, Sometimes the most positive thing you can do is refuse to participate in conversations that diminish your worth and the worth of others who look like you. With those words, Zenaia turned and began walking toward the exit, her heels clicking against the studio floor in a rhythm that seemed to echo through the stunned silence. Kelly called out after her, her voice cracking with emotion. "Zenaia, please. I'm sorry if I hurt you. That was never my intention." Zenaia stopped walking but didn't turn around, her voice carrying across the studio with crystal clarity. "Kelly, the road to harm is paved with good intentions. The question isn't what you intended. It's whether you're willing to learn from the impact of your words." Kelly's response was immediate and pleading. "I am willing to learn. I want to understand. Please give me that chance." For a moment, Zenaia's shoulders seemed to relax slightly, and there was a flicker of something softer in her expression. But when she finally turned back to face Kelly, her decision was already made. "Kelly, that learning needs to happen on your own time, not during a public interview where my professional reputation is being questioned in real time." The studio felt like it was holding its collective breath as Zenaia delivered her final words to Kelly. "I hope you do learn from this, Kelly. I hope you understand that supporting other women means more than just saying you do. It means not contributing to the systems that question our qualifications and reduce our achievements to anything other than our talent and hard work." Kelly stood frozen in place, tears beginning to form in her eyes as the full weight of the situation settled over her. "Zenaia, I'm truly sorry. I never wanted this to happen." Zenaia's expression softened just slightly, showing a glimpse of the grace that had made her such a beloved figure. "I believe that you're sorry, Kelly, but sorry doesn't undo the impact of what happened here today." With that, Zenaia turned and walked out of the studio, leaving behind a shocked audience and a devastated host. In a moment that would be replayed and analyzed for years to come, Kelly remained standing in the interview area, her face a mixture of regret, confusion, and dawning awareness of how drastically the conversation had gone wrong. The cameras continued rolling for several more seconds, capturing Kelly's stunned expression as she processed what had just occurred. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely audible. "We're going to take a break. This incredible confrontation shows us how quickly a routine interview can become a defining moment when underlying tensions about representation, respect, and professional recognition come to the surface." The power of Zenaia's response reminds us that sometimes walking away is the strongest statement you can make. What do you think was the most powerful moment in this exchange? Hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments which part of this confrontation resonated most with you.